welcome to the Connected Wellness Podcast. We are your hosts, Rachel Ann and Marianne.
So in this podcast, guys, we're going to talk about how our spiritual, emotional, and physical health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically to help us live our best lives. We're excited for you to come and achieve connected wellness with us.
Yay! Connected Wellness. Here we are. So we are so excited that you are here, whether you are listening or you're tuning in on YouTube and watching us as well. We're so excited that you're here. This is our first episode.
Woo!
So
I'm excited.
So what I'm really excited too. We've just been excited and being like, we're excited. And we hope that you feel the energy too. So today what we're going to do, we're basically going to talk about what is connected wellness. Who am I? Who is Marianne? How did this idea come about? Why we think it's important. And then we'll also talk about some self-care stuff that we have in mind for 2023. We'll also talk about our wellness wins. So stay tuned to hear about that. And yeah, just have a really great conversation to let y'all know what you can be expecting from our podcast. And we are very open to your suggestions, thoughts, and feedback. At the end of the podcast, we'll let you know how you can submit all of that. But yeah, I think that's what we're doing today. Did I miss anything, Marianne?
No, that sounds great. I think it's a great plan. I'm here for it.
Yay!
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we both have notes. So if you see us looking away, it's because we have notes because we are so responsible. So let's start talking about who we are, what is connected wellness, how did this idea come about, and why we're doing it. You want to go first or you want me to take it?
I'll go ahead. Okay, cool. So my name is Mary Ann Wabasaba. A lot of you, I don't know, whoever's listening may know me or may not, but I just really briefly, there's a lot of things about me, but let me tell you just a few things about me. So I've been married for about 16 years to a wonderful, wonderful man. You'll probably hear a lot about him in the future because I like him a lot. And then I have been teaching at the college level for about 11 years, roundabout, again, another long story how I came to teaching, but I love it. So here I am. And about this whole thing. So my faith background, I am Coptic Orthodox Christian. Coptic just means Egyptian. It's an ancient faith, and I'm really excited to talk about that. If we ever want to talk about that, a lot of things I like to talk about, but so yes, definitely love Jesus, and I'm Christian, and we'll talk a lot about that. But how did we get to this place where we're going to talk about connected wellness, and what do I think it is, and what does it mean to me? Well, I think wellness, means basically the state of being healthy, of not having something wrong with you, if you kind of look up the definition. And what do we mean by connected wellness? Well, there's so many parts that go into what makes me healthy, right? Physical is just one of those things. There's emotional health, there's spiritual health. Those are kind of the three main areas that we want to focus on here. Because one of them is not enough, right? Like I could be physically healthy, not have anything technically wrong with me, but that doesn't mean I'm functioning at the level that I should be functioning at or that I'm meant to function at. So why is this important to me? Because I know that God has created me for a purpose. I have potential to do great things for him and in this world. And I can't do those things if I'm not well, right? I need to be like functioning at my utmost potential in those three areas, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, if I want to do anything good in my life, if I want to achieve anything, if I want to, really do anything of value, and if I want to live well, right? If I want to enjoy my life, we need to have all of these components functioning properly, right? So I think it's about maintenance. Just like you have to maintain a car or whatever, if you want it to work properly, I think that's the same thing. I think that's what wellness is. So it's important to me personally, and I feel like I'm not the only one. So I wanted to be able to talk about it with you because I know this is something you feel strongly about. And, I wanted to be able to share that with people because I think a lot of us are kind of on this same journey of trying to, not just survive because life is hard, right? But to actually live well and do amazing things Sorry if that was a long-winded answer, but
that was awesome.
That's why I want to talk about this, the story of how we actually like started a podcast. Maybe that's another time. So I don't talk for too long and I let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's funny because I was thinking like, oh, I'll bring that up. So in addition to everything Marianne said, Marianne and I are cousins, and basically how this idea came about is one day Marianne was on a walk and texted me and was just like, yo, I'm listening to a bunch of podcasts. I'm kind of like feeling the need to add some positivity, some emotional health, some spiritual health, just something different that is in the podcast world, but not as much. We're both Egyptian, so that provides a really unique perspective to it. I'm also a Christian. I'm more non-denominational Christian. My husband is a pastor. So there's a lot of different angles about the topic of wellness that I feel like the two of us together can really bring along. So she was like, yo, do you want to do this? And I was like, yo, let's pray about it. We'll get back to and we'll reconvene. We prayed about it. We reconvened. We're like, yo, let's do this. So that's essentially how it started, is really just wanting to add something to the podcast world that is there, but not there as much. And there's certain intersections of our identities and perspectives that we have that would be really great to add to the conversation. And through our own conversation, like with us two, and also the conversations we've had with other people, this is like a thing. Like this, like these intersections of these specific things like spirituality, emotional wellness, and physical health, is a thing that people are really wanting to know more about. So I don't know. I feel like that's like the high level view of how it came about. Just like Marianne was mentioning and sharing a little bit about herself. So I live in New York City with my husband. We have 5 plant babies. I'm going to give myself some props for that. One of them is not doing so well, so we're not talking about that. But right now we have 5. That might change by the next time we have an episode. And I used to be a psychotherapist. I went to graduate school. I have 2 masters in counseling psychology, specifically mental health. Did a little bit of psychotherapy and then was like, no. And similarly to Marianne, the career journey has been not straightforward, but I find myself and where I've landed on, after years of being in higher ed and working with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging spaces, and working with marginalized communities in higher ed and primarily PWI, or primarily white institutions, I find myself in a holistic life coaching role right now. So I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business, Rachel Ann Life Coaching. And so that was another reason why I was really jazzed when Marianne talked to me about this, because I was like, oh, this is definitely in line with my work and what I do and what I feel like is really helpful. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. And then in terms of what wellness means, honestly, Marianne, I think, described it really well. The only thing that I might add is that when one area of our health or our wellness is unwell, it tends to impact everything else. And so that's why I love this idea of connected wellness. Like in our logo, right? The flower has that connectedness to it, and it's 3, and they're all working together. And so that is an illustration of what we believe happens like as people when we tune into the different parts of ourselves in a healthy way, then we're holistically healthy. So I love that so much. And we want to just hear from other people and have really engaging conversations about it. So
definitely.
Thus, Connected Wellness was born. Yay!
I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add something? What I think is important about, again, like you said, the integration. So as church people, I think a lot of times we are taught that all that matters is your spiritual health, right? That's the only thing that you have to worry about, is to focus on your spiritual health, and everything else will be fine. But God made us with a body and a mind as well as a soul, right? So all 3 of those parts that he created us with need to be functioning and need to be taken care of. So that's why I think it's so important, especially as, a Christian or as church people, whatever you want to call it, as someone who believes in spirituality, that we focus not only on one at the expense of the others, right? That it is this balance, this interconnectedness, like you said. So that's what I think is going to be really helpful, literally for me too, because I want to walk this journey together, right?
Yeah.
I will speak for myself. I am not an expert in anything except I've been trying to achieve balance my whole adult life, right? That's about it, and I'm walking this journey and making changes gradually, and hopefully someone will want to walk with us, right? And hopefully benefit and share, what you've been trying as well.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think that goes along with what are like the goals of the podcast. So this is meant to be a space where we share information, maybe share educational resources and stuff like that. But it's mainly for like wondering, asking questions, figuring out what the answers are, and potentially different answers or different solutions. While I am a life coach, and while Marian has been living a physical health journey like really, really well for a while, and while we do have our areas of expertise, we are very much an expert in just learning and wondering. So that's really like the goal here. And we do invite people of all different faiths here. We do emphasize spiritual health as opposed to specific religious health. And the reason why is there's a difference between the two. And we'll probably get into it. What is the difference between the two? But we encourage people from different faith backgrounds to tune in and see, one, are there things that we're saying that are helpful and applicable? And two, if they're not, like, let us know that, because we do really want to have feedback so that we can continue to create a space that people are able to grow in this area however they would like to. So we'll definitely be talking about our Christian identity, but also our spiritual identity, which is like our relationship with our like inner spirit, our inner selves, which is informed by religion for a lot of people, but also for people who don't have a religion or don't subscribe to a belief system. There's still a sense of spirituality, a sense of like altruism and connectedness with other people in a more spiritual sense. So we're really excited to talk about so many things. Anything else, Marian, before we hop into self-care?
Just that you did describe us as nerdy cousins. So that makes sense that, yes, we just love to learn and read and look into things. Absolutely. So yes, I'm here for it. Happy to be called a nerd any day. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I felt like nerdy was like, a really great way to describe the way we understand and our like motivation and the things that we do is in a very nerdy like way. Like we really like to understand and practice things. And I'm like, we're nerdy and it's cute. So
we were definitely talking about functional MRIs yesterday for no reason.
Which I mean, that brought about so many other questions that I thought of new questions today, but we will talk about functional MRIs at a different time.
Different time. Not really fitting with the topic of today. So maybe another time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's hop into self-care. So today we're going to talk about what is self-care, because I think that's a really hot topic. So what is it? Is it more than like pretty pens and journals and candles? What's the intention behind it? So I think that's one aspect. And then also talking about it from a biblical aspect. So for people who are Christians, you're going to especially love this. And for people who are around Christians, you will especially love this too, because it may be able to help you understand a lot of the terminology and why we think this is important, and also how to shake the table in some of our churches, which we need to do, and that's okay. So yeah, we're going to hop into self-care, and then we'll talk about some goals that we have for next year. Marianne, tell us about self-care. What does that mean to you, girl?
Okay, well, I think that when we first think about it, if you don't think about it too much and you just hear this buzzword self-care, exactly like you said, you think of pretty candles and, maybe a spa day and putting on a face mask and, just like basically like, girl, treat yourself, right? That's what you think of when you think of self-care. But I think it's so much more than that self-care is sometimes doing things we don't necessarily want to do or don't seem like fun, but it goes so much in hand with this idea of wellness. That's why I think it was a great first topic for us. Like, self-care is making sure that you can function properly, right? That you have the things, the tools, to need so that you can do the things that you need to do in this life, right? So, actually, my priest this past Sunday was talking about the difference between needs versus wants. And that really, I was thinking about this idea of self-care, and I think that's huge because we want things, right? We want to take a nap sometimes, or we want to, eat that ice cream, or whatever. We want to do a lot of things, and because we think that like that's going to make me relaxed right now, or, I'm tired, I want to do whatever. But sometimes what we need is very different, right? Like I need to drink water and stay hydrated. I need to eat these vegetables. I need to, go on this walk and get active. I need to sleep early so that I can do what I need to do tomorrow, right? Things that might not seem fun, but they're the things that our body, our mind, our soul, right? Our spirit, those are the things that we need to do to function.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think I like that you highlighted the difficult aspect of it, because there are times where like napping is part of self-care. If you are literally tired, you probably need, like, that's your body being like, hello, we need to rest, right? Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. I don't know what it is. But there's moments though where napping can actually be not a self-care thing, but can actually be detrimental to your health. And that's when we go into like, is it a symptom of depression or anxiety, and something that you need to speak to a professional about. Fun disclaimer that we should probably mention: we are not giving advice. We are not replacing any doctors, any practitioners, any pastors, priests, imams, anybody. We are not replacing any of them. But I say all that to say, sometimes it's an indicator of something that needs to be tuned into. And sometimes it's an indicator of like, yeah, let's just like care for our body in this way. But that all comes from a place of self-awareness. So self-care helps with self-awareness in the sense that you do things to care for yourself because you understand what your mind and your body and your spiritual nature needs. And so you do things to nourish that. And that is a determination of the decisions that you make in the future moving forward. And so candles are great. I literally have one behind me. I like them. They smell great. At Aldi, it's $4.50. So I am just like the happiest camper with candles. But the candles don't have the power to change things. Mm-hmm. It's more so creating an environment, or I hate this term, but a system of set in place of doing things so that I'm able to be healthy and then operate from a place of being healthy. So candles smell really nice, and they smell nice and they help me relax. So the candle's just being a candle. But if I think all of the power is in the candle, and instead I'm not realizing like, wow, me setting up a stress-free environment is the goal. And so having candles is a part of that. Making sure I have my water is a part of that, and staying hydrated, making sure I take a break every like 30, 40 minutes so I can stretch my legs, stuff like that. That's really the goal, is creating and setting that environment. And self-care is important because it allows you to see where you love yourself and potentially where you don't love yourself. And I know that's a very difficult statement to hear. What I mean is that you do self-care from a place of, I love and care for myself, therefore I am going to care for myself in this way and do healthy things. It is not the reverse. It is not, I do not love myself, therefore I'm going to fill myself with candles and pens and journals. It doesn't work like that. It can help at first, but it'll only reach like a superficial level. And from a more spiritual perspective, and from a fun Christian added perspective as well, God has given us the gift of our bodies, of our minds, of our souls. And God has been like, yo, like, take care of this. I care about you so much so that like I've done all of these things for you. And I want you to live in a way that is like pleasing to God, if you're somebody who believes in God, but also in a way that is able to add to the world that we live in. And it's very difficult to do that when we're not feeling healthy. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying our identity is based on other people and how much we help people. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying from the spiritual perspective of altruism and having that connectedness with your inner self, the self-care allows you to say, hey, I love myself. So that means that I need to take a break from whatever it is that I'm doing. So I'm going to text my friend to let her know I'm going to be 20 minutes late, and I'm going to tune to myself. That way I can show up in a way that is healthy, and I can show up in a way that serves myself and other people well, so that like everybody wins. for people who are Christians or for people who are interested in the Bible or around Christians, Jesus is a very good example of self-care. He napped when he needed to nap. He wept. Literally, there is a verse. It's like Jesus wept, right? So he expressed himself emotionally in a healthy way because something very deeply sad was happening. He was grieving, so he wept. There was a response to what was happening. There's an internal response to what's happening externally outside of him. And so I think the last thing that I'll say about self-care is, especially from the Christian perspective, is God does know what's in our minds. And so that's why a lot of the Bible talks about capturing thoughts and like holding them and being like, what am I going to do with this thought? Making sure our thoughts are pleasing to God, not because we're like these stupid, dumb people. No, but because we want to be in alignment with the person or with the entity that created us. And God knows it's hard. That's why he sent us support systems like therapists and coaches and friends and support systems. And that's why there's also things like the Bible and worship spaces and spiritual centers. So that we're not doing this alone, because doing it alone actually makes it really, really difficult. So that's my fun little rant about how Jesus was is the best example of self-care. There was a whole storm going on and he was napping. Like I'm just like, wow, I need to nap during the storm because that shows how much faith I have in God to be able to do all of these things. And he was just a really good example of what wellness and taking a break, but still doing the work that he was assigned and that he wanted to do. And other times he didn't want to do. And so he had to like seek support. He had to like really, really pray, God, I don't want to do this, but I know you told me to. So give me what I need to be able to do this. So I don't know. Jesus is just such a beautiful illustration of that. So yeah.
So I want to say, about how you said we have like resources in place, right? Like we're not supposed to do it ourselves. So even though it's self-care, right? It's not things I have to do all by myself, right? Like sometimes self-care is reaching out to a friend or, like you said, a therapist or a doctor or whatever, right? Like sometimes there are things I can't do for myself, and taking care of myself is reaching out for help. So I thought maybe we could give a couple of examples like in those three arenas, if you don't mind. So like, I think physical self-care is probably the easiest one to think of. Like, Rachel, what are a few things you do for physical self-care?
For physical self-care, I typically do stretching and walking. Those ones are like the biggest ways because in the way that I practice self-care, specifically right now, I hurt my knee, LOL. And so self-care, when I'm like tuning into my injured knee, is like, okay, Rachel, we're going to wear a brace. We may avoid some steps. We may have to take a break here and there. So it's understanding the needs of my body, and it changes. That's a whole word. Our needs change because we evolve as people, and that's legit. So the self-care for me, I would definitely do the walking part, and I typically like to walk outside. I like to be in nature. It's a great time for me to pray or listen to podcasts. And then also stretching. Stretching is a great way that I practice self-care because I feel the stress and the tension releasing in my body. And my body literally feels, is the term limber? Like I feel like I could just move around a little bit more. And I literally feel a difference. I feel more flexible and I've experienced less pain. And I feel like it's my body's way of being like, thank you for like allowing me to do this. So now I'm not walking around with the pain of yesterday. So those for me, those are probably the top two physical health self-cares.
I love that. And you see how your body responds to it, right? So when you do the things that your body needs or mind or spirit, right, you will feel that response. You know, you'll see that you just feel better and you could do more things that you want or need to do. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. How about emotional self-care?
Whew.
Yeah. That's the one. I think both emotional and spiritual maybe is the one we tend to think of less often, right? Because our bodies are kind of demanding, right? You know, like when you're hungry, when you're tired, like when you're like, it's demanding. Your body is very demanding, but we tend to ignore, I think, our emotions or our spirit if we need to. Also because it's hard to know like what you need. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like sometimes my brain is just a giant jumble of emotions and thoughts, and I don't know exactly what it is that I need, you know, in that moment. So perhaps taking some quiet time is the self-care that I need, right? Just to figure out, process like what's going on and what is it? Do I need, you know, some alone time? Do I need to call a friend? Like, do I need to sit and read? Do I need to take a nap, right? What is it that I need, or do I need to keep working so I stop worrying about, you know, what it is that I need to get done for work? So I think taking a break, like a little bit of a mental break to figure out what is going on and process what's in our mind, for me is maybe some emotional self-care that I need to do. Maybe I'll add that to my goals for 2023, because I probably don't do that enough at all. That like cliche joke that like my brain is like a browser with 85 tabs open and where's that music coming from? And there's like pop-ups. Like I know it's like so cliche and cheesy, but it's so true. I don't know if you can relate, but it is like super true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Shut all those tabs down, right? Take 5 minutes and like see what you need in that moment. That's what I want to try to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think you touched on self-care for both spiritual and emotional. I think one reason why these two are a little bit more difficult than opposed to physical health care is physical health self-care is because it's like your physical, right? Like my arm hurts. Okay, I'm going to do something so my arm stops hurting, and it's like pretty easy to figure that out. For things like emotional and spiritual, it requires self-awareness, which a lot of people are just not that self-aware because it's scary to be self-aware, and that's very legit. I'm not mad at you. It's just that's just how it is. It's scary to be self-aware. It takes a lot of courage, and also there's a fear that if you start to understand something in the emotional, spiritual sense, that it's just like never going to end. And you're going to be in this, like what I call like an anxiety spiral or like the thought train. And it's just going to lead you to a place of an unpleasant memory and you can never leave. And you're like, why did I start this in the beginning? Yeah. I think that's legit. But the solution is to not ignore it. So for very like practical self-care things, and these are some things that are on my list that I want to be doing more of next year, especially for the spiritual senses, doing things like meditation. If you're somebody that has a belief system, you could do meditative prayer or contemplative prayer. That's really great because it helps you become more aligned and in tune with what's happening inside. So contemplative meditative prayer is basically focusing on a word. So it could be peace. It could be goodness. It could be blessings. It could be relax. Whatever it is that you wish to just like embody in that moment. And it's just repeating that. And then for people who do have a belief in God or a higher power, then inviting that. So as a Christian, for me, it's like, God, help me to feel peace. And then I'm just saying, God, help me feel peace. And then I might say, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, right? Because that's a scripture. And it's really just focusing on that. It's not anything like elongated. So meditation / meditative prayer / contemplative prayer, all of those are really, really helpful. And in terms of emotional self-care, journaling is probably one of the top tools. I know people don't like journaling, and I have a backup plan for you if you don't like it. But for people who do, pretty pens and pretty notepads are fun because it makes you feel excited to journal because you may not want to journal. So I'm not going to knock that. I literally have different colored pens. I literally like my journal. It looks pretty and it invites me in to then wreck my life as I like process everything. But journaling is really helpful because okay, I'll say this in 2 seconds, but this is going to be a future episode. Basically, it allows you to get everything that's inside to get it out. It's not to proofread. It's not to reread later. Literally just get everything that's inside of you out. And then you can process and see patterns that way. That's why it's really, really helpful for people who hate journaling, but still want to accomplish that need of getting everything inside out. Doing things like voice memos are really, really helpful. Just put the voice memo on and rant. Rant, do whatever it is that you want. And this is not something you need to listen to again or send to anybody. It's really just the purpose is to get it out. And that's self-care, because what you're doing is saying, hey, things are really stuffy right now in my brain. So I need to just kind of clean some stuff out. So I think that's a very helpful way those are some practical ways rather to engage in self-care in those ways. Did you talk about what your self-care goals were?
I didn't. I just alluded to the one, but yeah, those are great ideas, Rachel. Thank you. And I too love pens and paper. And this is another nerdy commonality that we have, I think. I love to write things down even in this tech age. But okay, so some of my goals, I wanted to pick goals in, again, these 3 areas of physical, emotional, spiritual health, right? So physically, like you said, I've been on this journey for almost 2 years now, and I work out a ton. I've really overhauled my eating. It's been amazing. I mean, praise God, it's really been awesome, and I'm super happy about it. But I've been so focused on doing things that get results, right? So cardio strength, that I never let my body rest. And I miss stretching and yoga and, these really relaxing activities that allow my body to be restored right after all the hard work. I haven't done literally any stretching in this year and a half that I've been working out like crazy, which is probably terrible. And probably why I have to go to a physical therapist now. So I really have this goal to be kinder to my body and add strength and more restorative kind of movement into my weekly routine. So stay tuned. You can hold me accountable to that. Yeah. No, I just lifted weights again. Okay. Then you're going to have to yell at me, Rachel Ann. Okay. I'm giving you permission because no, I'm really awful with that, but that's my physical big one, my big goal. Emotionally, I would like to learn to say no. I think this falls under the category of emotionally because I tend to fill my plate. I don't like to say no to people. I feel sometimes incapable of saying no if there's something that I'm able to do. But then I get overwhelmed. So I want to not get so emotionally exhausted a lot of the time. So that's a big goal for me to kind of set some boundaries on my time and on my energy. And then spiritually is exactly what you said, is I really want to try more of this contemplative prayer, right? So you had told me about this app, Centering Prayer, I think it's called. Yeah. And I really want to try that. And again, for me, self-care and wellness is all about habits, right? Creating habits that allow me to, take care of myself. So these are habits that I need to put into place, right? I have my routine for my workouts, for my food. I need to add the stretching in there. I need to add the contemplative prayer piece in there. And I think that for me, that's the only way to be successful is to make it a habit, So those are my 3 main goals. So you alluded to some of yours. What?
Yes. Let me see. I guess the only other ones is basically in the emotional health arena, continuing to unlearn unhealthy habits. I love that you said habits. We'll talk about that another time because we're starting to wrap up. But basically unlearning unhealthy habits, figuring out where I learned them, and then coming to terms of if I want to keep this or not, and what does that look like for me. So unlearning. And then I also want to get better. And I think the contemplative prayer goal that we have will be helpful in this. And I think this is another way where we see that all of these things are connected. By doing contemplative prayer, I'm able to pause the anxiety train in my mind a lot. And so that helps me, contemplative prayer helps me spiritually, and it also helps me emotionally to feel less anxious. So I want to be doing that more. And I think that will also help me with things like mindfulness and self-differentiation. Mindfulness is basically just being present minded doesn't mean you forget about the future and you like hate the future. It just means that allowing yourself to truly enjoy and be in that moment fully in a way that respects you and respects other people. And doing self-differentiation is basically having the courage and the confidence to be in spaces where I may be disagreeing with somebody or they disagree with me, but still just being in there and allowing for that to just be the case and having a great conversation without them trying to change my mind or me trying to change their minds. So self-differentiation is a relatively new goal for me. Mindfulness is a continuing goal. That's something I just need to practice more. Self-differentiation is a little bit of a new one for me. And really just being in spaces where I can learn from other people without, that's my problem. I learn from other people, but I feel the pressure then to change my mind. And it's like, Rachel, you don't have to change your mind unless you've been presented with something that was really helpful. So I'm kind of analyzing if that's some like recovering people pleaser stuff that I have to dig into more. Where did that come from and why? So those are my goals. Yeah. Anything else before we tell the people how they can connect with us and all of the fun things to come?
I just think that this is so important, and maybe just I'll say one thing that the Bible says that we should love our neighbors as ourselves, right? In that commandment, if you will, is the implication that we love and take care of ourselves. Right. So it's like not optional to take care of yourself as much as we should have sacrificial love for others and selfless love for others, like Jesus did. We are still commanded to take care of ourselves. Right. Like if you just think about how you treat the people that you love in your life. Right. And then compare it to how you treat yourself. And if I treated my husband, for example, the way I treat myself, would that be good? Most of the time, no, right? Because I'm not usually giving myself what I need, right? So if I treated Chris like that, that would be pretty awful, right? So I think that we need to understand, and we need to remember that we are valuable, we are created in God's image, and we are supposed to take care of ourselves, right? It's not like a luxury, right? And, if we want to do anything good, we want to have any sort of impact in our lives, I think we have no choice but to take care of ourselves. So I hope that, everybody feels the same and can really take some time, especially before 2023 starts, to think about how they can honor themselves, how they can honor the gift of life that God has given them, right? And take care of themselves the way that they need to be. So, blessings and love, I think, especially as we start the new year. But I think it's a good challenge for all of us, right?
Absolutely. I completely love the way that you explained that verse. And I think that's the best way and the healthiest way to look at that. And with that said, y'all, we would really love to hear from you. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, in the comments below, let us know what are things you would like to hear from us. What are your goals? We would love to know what your goals are so we can be praying for you. That's really nice to be praying for people. And also if there's anything that we can be doing, if there's any resources or education or topics that we could share to help you along in that journey, we want to do that. That is something that we would love to do. So let us know in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Anchor, you can leave a comment below as well. Also, Instagram. We on the gram, y'all. You can find us at Connected Wellness Podcast, and let us know what you would like to hear from us. What did you like? What did you not like? And thanks for being a part of the journey. And we're excited to see what is in store for this and how it will evolve and grow. Anything else, Marianne, before we say bye?
I'm just really excited too. So yeah, I would love to hear from everybody. And I'm serious. This is, you and I talk about this without the recording on, right? So I just think hopefully we can talk and enjoy ourselves, but also maybe give somebody a good idea or, encourage somebody in the process. So Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, we wish you a happy holiday season. If you are celebrating any holidays, we wish you moments of rest, self-care. If you have to say no to something, we pray that you have the courage to do that. If you have to say yes to something, we pray for the courage to do that. And whatever healthiness, whatever health looks like for you, we pray that you're able to practice that in these next few weeks. And we're excited to chat with y'all in 2023 and all the fun stuff to come.
Absolutely.
And with that, we'll see you later.
Be well.
Bye. Be well. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. Be well. Take care, everybody.